Good evening, everyone. This is Jonathan J. Dog Letterman, and you're tuned into the Anything Bucket on WRPBI TV. Tonight in our studio, we have a young lady. She is a community advocate, a philanthropist, a spiritual leader. She believes that faith in God gives meaning and purpose to human life, and that service to humanity is the best work of life. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Anything Bucket, Cantor Debbi Ballard. Debbie, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Excellent. And I'm very excited that you're here because you have a backstory, a journey about your spiritual path and your reinvention of yourself on several occasions that I think would really be intriguing to our audience. If you could share a little bit about yourself and how the spiritual path came about for you.
Sure. Well, first of all, I heard a great quote yesterday that really summed up my life. That quote was, "You find your passion where your deepest pain is." And I can definitely say that that has been the story of my life. Thankfully, it hasn't been too painful, but where there have been moments of pain, I have grown the most, and that has led me to where I am today. So a little briefly about the background. I grew up very involved in my Jewish community, loved Hebrew school, unlike many of my peers in school, loved my Hebrew school, loved Judaism, and I broke my parents' hearts when I came home in my 20s to tell them I was marrying a non-Jewish man. And they disowned me at the time. They wanted nothing to do with my marriage. And we struggled very hard to figure out how to incorporate Christian faith and the Jewish faith in a household and yet raise Jewish children, because he agreed to do that. I became a very active lay leader in my synagogue, and while I loved my Jewish affiliation, I did find that I wanted to do things differently quite often, and I didn't get to make the rules there, and so I always said to myself, well, if I could do things my way, I would most likely do this or this. I was very unhappy with how congregations and communities welcomed and embraced interfaith families. And as a teacher in Hebrew school, I wanted to be more of a role model for my kids rather than just go home and learn this material and come back and take a test on it next week. So I really just found myself at a very painful time in my secular employment, if you will, not feeling rewarded, not feeling involved or connected, and I had an opportunity to become ordained as a cantor. I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do with it at the time, but I went ahead and I did it, and I said, well, if it's meant to be, the universe will kind of bring me something back. And so 10 years later, after my ordination, here I am. I'm the spiritual leader of about 400 families in my community. I am fortunate enough to perform life cycle events around the world, weddings, bar mitzvahs, baby namings, memorials, and I launched my own Hebrew school 5 years ago with 5 students, and today we have over 100 students in our unaffiliated Hebrew school program.
And that is phenomenal because you took your passion, you saw how you could solve some other people's pain, because
Right.
there's so many people out there that get tied into, I've got to be affiliated with the synagogue, I've got to go. And
Right.
they battle their inner selves, their inner divinity, where you basically say, hey, we're going to be at such and such a place, and come see us and come daven with
Exactly.
us, and everybody's welcome. And even though we're going to be utilizing the principles of Judaism,
Correct.
we're going to make sure that we put you in the right path for you to find your
Correct.
spirit and your inner divinity. So I want to applaud you and celebrate
Thank
you
you.
for that, because it takes a lot of courage to break away and say, no, I'm not affiliated with one particular temple.
Right.
Because we don't want to lock into that. And there's nothing wrong with the way the temples are run.
Right.
They're fine, and they work for many, many people.
Right.
For others, they're looking for something different. They're looking for the fellowship, the camaraderie, the non-judgmental people. When you walk in and they say, well, you didn't pay your membership dues, or
Right.
you didn't buy your high holiday tickets,
Right.
or anything like that.
Well, what I also found that was inherent throughout all synagogues that I ever went to was that while we're taught as Jews to learn our prayers by rote, and we can sing them or we can say them, we rarely learned what they meant. And when you can't connect prayer with meaning, it's ineffective. And I found that the most change in my life when I was able to really understand the prayers that I was saying and connect them and have them bring meaning and relevance to my life. And so this is one of the things that makes my services very different, is I'm very much a teacher. And so just explaining and sharing and conveying meaning and relevance to my families gives them a more enjoyable prayer experience.
And it's so important because I remember, growing up in a Jewish household and being bar mitzvahed and learning my Torah reading and all that, but not really understanding it until the cantor sat down and went step by step. This is
Right.
what you're saying. This is what you're speaking about when you're reading this Torah portion. Then it hit home.
Right.
And we'd like to get your input and insight on making the mind-body-soul connection, and also how people can get in connection with you to maybe come to one of your services.
Sure. So the way that I began my entry into this market was believing that I could make a difference as a personal spiritual leader. So I thought of the idea in the middle of the night. I woke up, wrote it down, went back to sleep, and got up the next morning and bought the domain name. And it was mypersonalcantor.com. So that is my main website that kind of conveys who I am and what I do for people. There's also Education Station, and that is my Hebrew school, my unaffiliated Hebrew school program. So there's a couple of different ways.
Fantastic. We want to thank you for being here on the Anything Bucket, and if you could leave the audience with one positive message for this evening, what would it be?
To listen. To listen to everything around you, and while you're busy sending up all of your prayers for everything that you want from God or the universe or whatever your source is, that it's the most important to take the few minutes to listen, to see what answers the universe or your source has back for you, because that's where you're going to find the most divine guidance.
And it's like we say all the time, seek and ye shall find, and the answers will come to you. And if you are seeking some answers and some guidance, visit Cantor Debbi Ballard at mypersonalcantor.com.